Alrighty. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming along this morning. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to getting down to the rest of the festival later on. So we'll probably see you all around. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of what to expect for this session. So we've only got 45 minutes, so I may not be able to solve 100% of your eco-anxieties, but it's a really good starting point, I think. So first I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me, then we'll get into the heart of it, and a big part of my focus is on embracing imperfection and just, really working in the grey zone, not being all black or all white on different decisions that we make. And then there'll be time at the end for some questions and answers. Okay. So, I'm Sarah. I grew up in Adelaide, and then I went and lived in Cambodia for 5 years. And it was while I was in Cambodia that I realised really how dramatic our plastic problem is. So a lot of the eco stuff I start talking about is single-use plastics. Obviously then that rolls into a wider environment conversation. So I started to really see exactly how dramatic the plastic problem that we're having is. And I thought, what can I do to sort of raise more awareness? And I started running a few events. Before I knew it, it had turned into a sort of full-blown education business. And then it expanded from Cambodia to throughout Southeast Asia. And then I was ready to come home to Australia. And I'd lived in Sydney previously for a year, and Sydney felt like the right place to come. It's got beautiful nature, lovely outdoors, go walking a lot. I really love being in the environment, but I also like to talk about how we're also part of the environment. It's not just that the environment's something over there that we need to protect. We're actually part of that system as well. And what happens in the environment is also happening to us, and how it's all connected. So that was, that's a really short version of my story. 5 years was a pretty cool, emotional roller coaster. And what seems to be coming up time and again is these conversations around, but what do I do? Or does the recycling even get recycling? How do I cut back when everything's wrapped in plastic? The bushfires, the climate change, all of this stuff, it's just so big and overwhelming. So I work on breaking that down a little bit and getting some steps happening. And they don't have to be perfect steps, but they are steps that help us move forward and stop feeling anxious about everything that's happening in the environment. So that's just a little bit about me. So I studied with the Climate Leadership Corps, which is Al Gore, former Vice President of the US's program. There was another training earlier this year in Brisbane, and the training I did was in Melbourne in 2014. And it's just, again, that program is about bringing more information to more people and helping more people take action. Oops, my formatting's a little bit wonky, but these are the kind of programs that I do. So workshops and seminars like this. A lot of focusing now on one-on-one and group sort of coaching and assistance for eco-anxiety. I have got a membership program. I love to get involved in community events. And then I've also got quite a lot of online stuff happening and also events. And I'll tell you about my next event at the end of the session today. And basically, I just think that we can have a cleaner and healthier environment and lifestyle than what we currently see as the norm around us, and that's the whole vision is to see a better future than what we've got. Okay, so we all know it's a little bit of a disaster. The plastic pollution issue alone is in the media. Like, I don't think that there's much distance between when we hop on and like look on Google or if we look on our Facebook feed or whatever, that there's always some sort of discussion about single-use plastics, the animals dying, the pollution, the things getting in all of the water, the food that we're eating. I'm not sure if you've heard the statistic that came out last year, but on average humans are eating the equivalent of a credit card's worth of plastic every single week. So it's a pretty bad situation that we're in at the moment, but there is a way forward and there are steps that we can take to not let that overwhelm us, and also to actually be part of a bigger change, because we as the people have a lot more power, I think, than we give ourselves credit for. Okay, so where to even begin? So, just to get an idea of where you're all at, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put yourself on the Ecowarrior spectrum? Let's go with that. So 1 is like, oh my God, I've accidentally wandered into the wrong room. What are we talking about? 10 is like, I live a zero waste home. So put your hand up if you're sort of around like maybe a 2 or a 3, like I'm aware of, that my actions have an impact on the environment and that it's important we look after that. Anyone around a 2 or a 3? Oh, I'm sure you're better than you think you are. Okay, anyone think that they're around a 5 or a 6? Like, take my own keep cup everywhere, take my own shopping bags. Like, yeah, I'm like saying no to the single-use plastic. So we've got a few 6s, yeah. And who's up around like maybe like an 8 or a 9? Like zero waste, composting, like, yeah. Nice, awesome. Hi, welcome. Okay, cool. So we've got people from all sort of different areas on that. So just to get a bit of an idea of what's perhaps attracted you to this session, who gets stuck on making the right choice over like products, for example? Yeah, a few of you. And you go, but this isn't that good, and you like get really caught in that indecision cycle. Yeah, I understand. Who like just gets this little inner yelly voice when they see people walking around with like single-use water bottles or something? Yeah. And who gets really frustrated with themselves when you've made a decision and you're like, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't right. That's like going to make a bad carbon footprint. Oh, what did I do that for? Yeah. Anything else you want to throw at me? Any other things that just make you go, oh my God, this is so hard? Supermarkets, yeah. Yeah.
That's my blood boiling sometimes, and you think,
yeah.
You've got no choices.
Absolutely, and they seem to be moving more and more that way. More things are packaged, and it's just like, okay, I'll just have some beans then. Yeah. Anyone else?
The different information you get as well.
Yeah, really confusing information. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that as well. Okay. All right. So, yes, these are definitely frustrations that I'm familiar with. And so I made a little graph of my journey. This here is bliss. This is like when I was ignorant and blissful, and I was just like, it's good. Like, I take my keep cup. Like, I am an eco-warrior. And then I learned a lot more, and then I had a little bit of a meltdown. I was just like, oh my God, we're all doomed. And then finally, I feel like I'm in a place where there is some balance, where I'm not berating myself for not being 100% perfect, where I can see that my decisions are making a big impact and a more positive influence on the people around me and on the world around me. That's not to say it doesn't sometimes look like that. It's not a perfectly linear process. Like, there are setbacks and then, reevaluating and moving forward. But I'm hoping that I can bring some of you guys onto the balance end of the curve. Okay. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about embracing imperfection, which is a title I gave to a talk at the beginning of last year that really helped a lot. And I realized I'd been doing it for quite a while, but actually speaking it out loud helped. And so it's something, when I give you some practical tips later, but it's something I think can help all of us, is like talking about it and then just letting some of that anxiety go. So when I moved to Cambodia, I had no intention of starting a business or anything like that. Who here has been to Southeast Asia at all? Okay, about half of you, cool. Cambodia is very grassroots, it's very dusty, it's very basic, which is beautiful in a lot of ways. There's also a lot of NGOs there. And so a lot of what I was getting was, oh, are you a charity, are you an NGO? Can you come and talk to this place and talk to this place? So for the first 2 years that I was bringing information about environment to groups, I was doing it in my spare time alongside a job and just sharing as much knowledge as I could. And then I realized that wasn't quite working for me anymore. The days at my day job were dragging, and I was just so excited for every other day of the week when I could work on this passion project. And it kind of went from there. And I like to say it was an organic process. Because I didn't have a business plan. I didn't even know if I was going to set it up as a business or an NGO. And everything I did along the way was really this like failing forward kind of a process. And so I decided to talk about that last year to a community group, and it was just amazing. So I called it Embracing Imperfection, and it doesn't look that grey, but that's a grey slide. It's grey because we don't have to be all or nothing. We don't have to be like zero waste home with only producing a tiny jar of waste for like 10 years. We can make an impact by making the steps that we can each and every time we make a decision. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck knowing where to go, and so it's like, well, I'm confused and I'm not sure because there's like too much information, it's confusing information, so I'm just going to do nothing. And I've definitely done that myself. We were talking earlier about eating meat or eating chicken, and just before the presentation started, and I was like that. I was like, oh, well, if I stop eating meat, then I'll have to be 100% vegan. And it just was such a leap that I put it off for so long. But when I realized that I could cut back gradually and that's more sustainable, and that in the long run, like, now people are like, oh, don't you miss cheese? I'm like, no, not really. Like, it's just our mind sort of playing tricks on us. It's like, oh, well, if you can't do the whole hog, well, why do anything at all? So, like, I'm all about the grey area in between, and like, what are the things that we can do to start stepping forward, and then we're going to end up with that like nice result at the end, but we don't have to do it all. So, just to put some pictures around that, it's a microphone. You know, we see a lot of these pictures. Does anyone follow like zero waste products or social media? Yeah. A lot of people post their pictures of their jar, of like the waste that they've created. And I think about this, like, you know, this bothers me as well. I've got a notice in the mail for my rental inspection, like the routine inspections that they do. And I'm like, how could I have known to stop that letter coming to save that piece of paper? On the flip side, I don't have a garbage bin. So I'm somewhere in between. And I think that that's somewhere, like if all of us were doing that somewhere in between, it's like that phrase that's come up in the last sort of year or so, we don't need a few people doing zero waste perfectly, we need a lot of people doing it imperfectly. And that's where I think we need to like concentrate our efforts. Okay, so I'd like to give you some ideas of what you might be able to do to get started putting some things into practice. So one of the things that got me started really was doing a plastic-free month. That's doing my best to avoid every single-use plastic for a whole month, because they say it takes 30 days to create a new habit. Focus on something continually, make some progress on that. And I'll give you an example in a moment. There's a carbon challenge, which is really nice. I'll go into the details on that, where you can measure your household carbon footprint and what steps you might be taking in your life to reduce that. So I'll talk about that in a bit more detail as well. We can do simple things like catch the bus, and often that can be less stressful. So I met some friends in town yesterday evening, birthday, and my friend made a decision at the last minute. She's like, I'm going to drive in to the city, hand the car over to my husband when he finishes work, and then he'll drive the car back. And she's like, I'm never doing that again. Peak hour traffic, it was the worst. From now on, I'm catching the bus. But it's also, the bus is a lower carbon footprint, so we can lower our stress levels and we can lower our carbon footprint. Talking about it, and I think this is a really important one, because sometimes we find it's hard to bring up subjects, it's hard to talk to people about topics that we're not sure if they resonate with or not, or if they're going to tell us that like we're a little bit woo-woo and hippie. But the more we talk about it, like not in a preachy way, not in a way that's like, oh, I can't seem to convince this person. Like, we can't convince people. And the more we try and convince people to do something that's not like natural to them, the more resistance we're going to get. So having conversations that are just really informative and no expectations are actually going to cause more fears. I can think of some that come back to me. Like the last time I was living in Sydney was 6 years ago. My colleague from the time said a few years later, she said, oh, you know, I really admire how you would always try to get people to, you know, not do this. I never said, oh, we should all be doing this. I'm getting keep cups for the entire office. It was just what I did, and she noticed that, you know, those kind of things are what's going to make the ripple effect really strong. And then taking it to your workplace. So again, when I've worked in offices, I've joined the green team. Or if there's not a green team, you could think about establishing a green team, because then that will draw out the people that are also interested in the topic. And enable you to be able to start making incremental changes. Okay, so just to go into a little bit deeper, plastic-free challenge. Who's heard of Plastic-Free July? A few of you? Who's participated before?
We have to. My husband's in renewable energy.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, so July we look forward to as much as I do every year. Yeah. But the principles apply of Plastic-Free July, that you could do it anytime today and do it from the 13th of March until the 12th or 13th of April. And what they do with Plastic-Free July is, firstly, you avoid as much single-use plastic as you can. And when you can't, you keep it. Because a lot of the way we operate is, okay, we'll throw it away and forget about it. We'll throw it away and forget about it. And this was one of the really distinct differences between Southeast Asia and Australia, is in Australia we hide it really, really well. So we throw our rubbish out, it gets taken away in the truck, and it magically disappears. Whereas in Southeast Asia, for those of you who've visited Southeast Asia, you see there's a lot of rubbish on the ground. And so it's really noticeable that it's like it's not just going away, it's still there. And that's, I think, what Plastic-Free July does really well, that you start to see, what am I using? Okay, I seem to, when I was in Cambodia, there's straws in every single drink that you order. So I'm like, even when I'm trying, I still have a lot of straws. So I'm like, how am I going to fix that? So I started carrying around a reusable straw, and every time I ordered a drink that was likely to come with the straw, I'd say, oh, but I've already got my straw, and use it as a review, and they'd be like, okay, that's weird, what's that about? And then they'd remember about 80% of the And the lie is that they're like really open and inclusive. You can run an event, bring people together. It's very community oriented, and now there's like people from all over the world participating in it. So it's a really nice uniting month. As I said, the principles apply, and you can do it anytime. And then these are some of like the techniques I like to use, which is like reframing things. So when I'm working with like a group, we will talk about the single-use plastic enemies, and starting with just those 5, because I think one of the things that I learned when the first time I did Plastic-Free July was like, oh my God, there's plastic in tea bags. Oh my God, like everything in the supermarket is wrapped in plastic. So it's like, calm down. Let's start with 5, and let's work on those. And then we can start to go from there. But if you try and do everything at once, it just becomes really overwhelming. So like reframing things to help you remember. So we've got the 5 plastic enemies, and then we've got the 5 reusable friends. And bearing in mind that sometimes it's not just a swap for a swap. Like where possible, you can actually just not have the packaging. I think that's very true to things like straws, and it's true to things like shopping bags, because often people will put something in a bag, and it's like, okay, there's a lot of excess there that really wasn't helpful. Okay, now the carbon challenge, which I mentioned, so that's on the 1 Million Women website. Who's heard of 1 Million Women? No? Okay, really amazing movement started here in Sydney, I believe. And if you go to their website, which is the number 1, millionwomen.com.au, I think, you can put in what you currently do into a little like questionnaire, and every month they will email you how much carbon you've saved. So you can say, oh yeah, I have water-saving devices in my shower, for example, and I collect that rainwater to water my plants, or I eat a local diet, or I eat a vegetarian diet, and all of those things, they'll be like, okay, great. So like I get my monthly email, it's like, Sarah, well done. You saved like 132 kilograms of carbon this month. I'm like, that's really nice. So it also makes us aware of some things that perhaps we were not sure of, but it's like rewarding us for the good bits that we're doing as well, which I think is really important to acknowledge when we are making good steps forward, and not always be in this space of not enough. Okay, so looping back to a little bit of the why. We live in this world, it's the only one we've got. And it's very easy once you get going to still keep going. Because when we protect nature, we're also protecting ourselves, our families, and the whole thing is connected. And I think that's really something that's nice to remember, is that all of us here in the room, we're connected to each other. We are individual people, but we belong together, and we work together as a system with the planet. So when we protect nature, we're actually also taking really good care of ourselves. Communicating is super important. There are so many fantastic Facebook groups for like-minded people, because it can feel really lonely sometimes when you're like forging this path. You know, as we talked about at the beginning, we're all at different levels, but that doesn't matter. It means that maybe you are able to help Julie in learning some new things along the way. She's already interested, obviously. And we can connect online, and we can connect in person, and it's still, I think it's really important not to feel isolated or like a bit of a weirdo, because I've definitely felt like that before as well. I'm like, here's my keep cup. In Cambodia as well, they're like, okay, do you want a straw? I'm like, no. So, you know, like, yeah, using the communication and the community to support each other. Groups again, so, I mean, just 2 weeks ago was Clean Up Australia Day. It was amazing. There were so many people going out and uniting. And whilst cleanups are more addressing like a symptom of a plastic pollution problem. They're also a really great way to unite the community and do something productive in a group. So finding something that's local to you. I know there's like a lot of responsible runners groups around Sydney where they go running and pick up trash. That's a really nice way to like get involved in group activities relating to environment. Influencing your workplace. So again, it's if you've got a green team already in your workplace, getting involved with that, or bringing ideas into the workplace, or just even if it's as simple as leading by your own example, because people will notice. And community events. So Break Free from Plastic often put on free movie events, which is really nice. Just getting involved and again, it's like feeling that community. I went to an event a couple of weeks ago with Tim Silverwood, the environmentalist, and I want to talk about this new program he's just started, Ocean Impact, I want to say. And Alex Stewart from Low Tox Life and Dr. Bronner's put this event on, and it was just like a bunch of like people I never would have met otherwise, and I just felt like I was really like with people. And even if you can't do that all the time, sometimes it can just soothe the soul to go along to something like that and be with other people that you know are on the same page. So if you found that interesting, I'm like spot on for time. This is so cool. If you've found this interesting, this is really just a taste, but I do provide information to my email community. You can go online and sign up. I've also got a piece of paper here that you can write your email. I know it's very old school. Straight away, you automatically get a download of my top 5 tips for those 5 single-use plastics and how to start making changes. So I'd love to stay connected with you after today. I mentioned that I also do some events. Next Wednesday, I've got an intimate evening about overcoming eco-anxiety with wine. Like wine's not the topic, we're just going to have wine while we're there. The tickets are on sale now. I'm selling them through the Humanitics platform, which also sends some of the funds from the ticket sales to Room to Read, which is an education program for girls. And I personally saw like their offices and the impact they were making while I was living in Cambodia, so that felt really nice to work with a platform like that. So yeah, I'd love to see you all again next week if you're interested. It's going to be at Barangaroo, so like very central in town here. And these are my contact details. So the website is plasticfreec.co. You can email me. I'm always on the Instagram and Facebook as well, trying to share useful, insightful information that can help you feel more confident and make decisions that don't leave you feeling like so worried about is it the right choice or isn't it the right choice. And I would like to open it up to you for some questions. So has anyone got any questions?
What is happening with all the plastic, the soft plastic? Is that actually staying in Australia? Because they're saying next year they won't be able to take that outside Australia.
That doesn't surprise me, and the amount that they've been able to take outside Australia has dramatically reduced since the start of 2018 when China stopped doing plastic recycling. A lot of that has shifted to Malaysia, but a lot of it is actually run through illegal channels, so Malaysia are having a really hard time monitoring that and all of the efficiency. We've probably all seen the news articles where containers of plastic are being sent back to Australia or America because of that situation. So we are going to have to take more responsibility on home soil. And I think that also comes to the awareness of like, can we reduce it? Because the systems currently in place don't have the capacity for the amount of plastic waste we're currently producing. Yeah.
It'd be like Wally. I always think of that movie.
Oh, yeah.
We had to go off planet and then
Yeah. So I think one of the things we can do at the moment right now is use some more of those independent, if we do have recycling. So firstly, start by cutting back. That's like ultimately like the plastic things that we don't use are like the best. Using things and like recycle, which are companies that are set up specifically to recycle that stuff. It does take a little bit more to it. Like your soft plastic, so anything like packets or whatever, you take them to the supermarket. Coles and Woolworths have big receptacles to put them in. It's not perfect. Well, that's great. It's not perfect, but it's what we can do now. And you remind me of a really good point that I'd like to make, which is every day we make a heap of choices, and especially as women, we make so many choices. It's like in the thousands or something crazy. So let's just make the best choice that we can make at any given time without agonizing over it, with the information that we have that we think is the best at that time. And if you learn something new tomorrow, don't beat yourself up for the decision that you made yesterday that maybe doesn't seem good enough anymore. Just know that like I had as much information as I had, and these choices were available, and I chose the one that I thought was the best. And sometimes that choice is nothing. And like one of the things that comes up a lot, it's one of my favorites. It's like it's always a nice shock. Who here drinks coffee? Yeah. Okay, majority of people. Coffee is a luxury. It's a treat. We are really lucky that it's so accessible and so affordable in this day and age. Sometimes the best choice you can make is actually just not having the coffee. So if you don't have time to sit in and have it in a proper cup, that's how I remembered very quickly to take my own cup. I was like, well, no cup, no coffee. And that's how it stuck. Whereas I've seen other friends go through the process, I'll take it this time in the takeaway cup, and I'll remember my cup next time. And of course, next time, they don't. So like a little bit of pain for like creating a new habit. Yeah, so it's just like making that best choice that we have at that time. Without keeping ourselves over for the rest of time. Like it's not healthy, and it's not useful in being able to move forward. Cool. Okay, any other questions?
You said about July and then not getting rid of the recycled plastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the actual, is it just to make you more conscious about using plastic?
Yes.
That's,
yeah.
because obviously you've
still got it, but I think when we see it,
yeah.
So when we throw it away straight away, it's like out of sight, out of mind. So it's like hanging on to it for a month. You'll be like, oh, okay, like I really do have 2 million cookies.
The waste into the jar, I don't understand.
So that's like a lot of the people in the zero waste movement that are leading that. And I think, like, don't get me wrong, but they have minimised so much the only waste that they're throwing to landfill fits in a jar. And I would like to point out that the official sort of definition of zero waste is actually diverting all 50% to landfill. So it's not actually, I think that the zero waste can be a little bit overwhelming for people as well. Whereas if it's like, okay, well, I've got 10% leeway, like that feels a lot more achievable. And just like taking those steps, not feeling like, okay, so from now on, I'm zero waste. Starting now, like, it's not possible. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Anybody else? Yeah. So at the moment, okay, so this is great because this shows like just how not perfect I am. I normally take my own sort of reusable produce bags to the supermarket, but sometimes I don't. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy some mushrooms, so I'll get a paper bag. So currently my rubbish bin is a paper mushroom bag. And most of my waste, I use a program called Share Waste so that I can some It's quite a big program here in Sydney. There's a lot of shareway spots, so you can look on the app and there's a map. And I actually really love my, I don't know, host compost, because they've got chickens and stuff, and it's just like, I know it's going to a good place. So I don't have any of that like smelly sort of stuff in my rubbish. It's just like the small bits and labels and stuff that come off things. And sometimes it's bigger. Any of the soft plastics, I rinse them out and I drop them off at my local Woolworths. So yeah, it's just, and then when the mushroom bag is full, I'll throw it in the red bin for landfill. Sad but true. And then I'll find some other sort of packet or something that I've got. So I don't actually go and buy bin liners or anything like that. I've been working in it's been a process. And coming back to Australia, I've only been back in Australia for 4 months. I've had to learn again a lot of these things for the Australian system and what's available and how much plastic there is in the supermarkets and all of this. Where can I get, like experimenting with home delivery vegetables to see which ones have the least packaging. And yeah, it's a trial and error. Yeah. So pasta, if I buy from the supermarket, I go for the ones in the cardboard boxes. What's that?
I have been too lately, but still has plastic in there.
Still, yeah, it's got the window, hasn't it? Yeah, it's not perfect. It is less, yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, if that's the best choice, if I can't get to a local, like bulk food store, so the nearest one to me is I don't have a car, so the nearest one to me is a 15-minute walk away. So I'll work that into my daily exercise, and I'll go to Scoop and I'll buy some things there. Scoop, yeah, it's like the sauce. There's like the sauce, bulk foods, and there's Scoop, and you can take your own containers and measure it out, and it's really awesome. Yeah, they've got quite a few places. I'm not sure exactly where. Yeah.
It's needed. But yeah, because with the deli, sometimes I've gone and they've put it in my container. But
Yeah.
Then they'll go back there and they're no, we're not allowed to do it. It's against
Right.
our policy.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, do you know if there's something that's in the works where we can actually take our own container? Like when you would buy fast foods and things like that?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the rules that fast foods have. Again, like in Asia, like, yeah, cool, if you want it in your container, you can have it in your container.
They always say, food safety regulations.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and they say we
I
can't do it.
think it depends how well regulated. And some of these big companies are really big, so it does get mixed up, because I think, now I can't remember if it was Woolworths or Coles or both, but last year they said, no, you can bring your container, you can. And then still there was some confusing information about whether you could or not. But the last I knew, their policy was that you can.
Which isn't
Because
great.
they try to
It's
say-
understandable because there's so many idiotic people out there that will say those things, and
Yeah.
obviously companies don't want to have that risk. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, without that risk means that you end up with plastic.
Yeah.
Probably at the moment with the virus.
Well, I think it's probably made everybody a lot more eco-aware, which is great. But you know, like the thing you can do is try. If you take your container and ask, and just say, please, look, I'm really trying to do my bit for the planet. And if they really say no, and you really need to buy that thing, then buy it, and know that you've tried your best. Yeah.
Keep trying.
Yeah,
Then
exactly.
I'll get the idea eventually.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. We've got a lot of power. Things are shifting, and it's because of all of us. Yeah,
All the media sites and then
exactly. Yeah.
Thoughts on biodegradable straws and biodegradable, I have a restaurant.
Okay, cool.
So I have a restaurant in Greece, and it's on the most
Mm-hmm.
I tried straws, you know, cups, like, and it was an uproar. People were like, no, people were leaving my restaurant. They wouldn't drink a cocktail because I wouldn't, I was like, no straws. We did start with, like, I was using spaghetti as a straw, but then someone was like, I'm a celiac, and
you get tapioca ones.
But
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was a culture thing, then so many different nationalities coming into one sinking pot of place. Over there you can't do, like, you know, you can't a straw, a stainless steel straw, because it can't be cleaned properly.
Yeah.
Technically, like, for the amount, we've got 400 people that come through on a day.
Right. Yeah.
I had to get biodegradable straws, which was extremely expensive. But still, in my eyes, I was like, it's still straws.
Yes,
It's
still
like,
single use.
Still,
Yeah.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it's still a single use product. We then started using using those to create like crafty things for kids. But yeah, just purely your thoughts on biodegradable sort of.
Yeah. Well, before I dive into biodegradables, I think it's also not necessarily just a cultural thing, but I think it's a human thing. It's like we go in our brains, the fight or flight comes in and goes, change is death. Oh my God, cannot change.
Yeah.
That's like the knee-jerk reaction. And we've seen that come in with the plastic bag bans. We've seen that with so many different changes that have taken place over the years. The first reaction is really strong, no. And then people will gradually get used to the idea. Like where I was living in Siem Reap, which is a tourist town in Cambodia, eco wasn't a thing when I moved there. There was one cafe using bamboo straws. And now everybody's out doing cleanups like practically every day. They've all got like their reusable or biodegradable stuff in their cafes. Like it's really shifted huge amounts in a pretty short amount of time. I was involved and there were some other people. It was very community based. It's come from local businesses and the local community for sure. And then the government have seen, that's cool, we'll jump on board with that. So like it has a snowball effect. So biodegradables themselves, firstly, I think it's important to look at what kind of biodegradables they are. Are they cornstarch? Do you have the material safety information from the supplier? Is there any? Because sometimes they still hide a bit of PP plastic in them. Can you compost them? Are they home compostable? Because otherwise they've got to reach really high temperatures to be able to break down. Or is there, and I imagine this would, from the sounds of what you're describing, would probably be very difficult, is there somewhere that you can send them for industrial composting? Probably not.
No, everything, like on the island,
Right.
It's insane. Like even I did bags for like calico bags to give to the local shopping. We've got quite small shops. So
Yeah.
It's going to be advertising your restaurant. I was like, oh my God, stop giving away bags.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it was a good thing for me as well because it was marketing my restaurant.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, like so. It's
Yeah.
very interesting to see.
Bigger change does take time. I think where there is limited choice in terms of the materials you can use, and landfill, I mean, like if landfill is landfill, you can put organic things into landfill and they'll still be there in 20 years because there's not enough air, there's like nothing's breaking down. So what I often suggest if I'm working with a restaurant or cafe is, can you make it an opt-in rather than an opt-out? Like have your biodegradable straws, maybe test some other things and see what happens if people have like gotten over the initial shock and they're like, oh, okay, this is all right. But have it more of, if you need a straw, feel free to ask. Or we've got some straws on the bar if you need a straw. Which is the way that we were doing it. Yeah. it might not be perfect, but things will change. There will be more facilities available. There will be new kinds of straws, like wheat straws have become a bit of a thing now as well. So if you can do, and some places do composting. I don't know if that's something that you can do on site with your food scraps, and then potentially like wheat straws or something, and having people opt in. Here in Sydney, I was talking to a restaurant owner, and they were sending like 2 bins of waste, and their waste company were coming and they were paying for that to get collected every week. And after we had a little bit of a chat, he's like, oh, okay. He messaged me a couple of days later. He's like, I spoke to them. We're now doing like 1 compost and 1 rubbish, and it's actually cheaper. And so like that was like a really good result. So it's not a perfect thing, and like there's no sort of one size fits all. There's just choosing the best that you can, and just keep looking for new things, because it is constantly changing.
And is there any websites for restaurants or or businesses to assist them in how to change over?
I mean, I've got some things on my website, and I've worked with a lot of businesses, and often it starts with getting everybody on the same page. So having that information, bringing the team in, your team might have ideas on how to overcome it as well. So really getting everybody on the same page, and then you can work together on solutions rather than trying to, maybe solve everything as yourself as the owner. Yeah. But you're welcome. Okay, so I think we've reached the time limit. So I do just want to leave you with one final parting thought. And that is that there is no amount of guilt that can change the past, and there's no amount of anxiety that can change the future. So if we just do the best we can every day and keep stepping forward, we'll start to have less anxiety and more positive outcomes. So, thank you.